Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Buckle up. This one doesn't start with love, it starts with silence. The kind that rings in your ears when everything you thought you knew suddenly unravels. There were 3 forks laid out on the table. 3. I remember staring at them, wondering if that was normal. I wasn't even hungry. But I kept moving the smallest fork a few inches to the left, then back again, like somehow controlling that would help me hold on to everything else falling apart. She was in the bathroom, humming, still in her robe, hair wrapped up in a towel, just hours away from our rehearsal dinner. And she was humming like it was a Tuesday. My phone buzzed. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again, this time a text from her best friend, Marla. Hey, are you really okay with Emery coming? I froze. Emery. No last name needed. No context required. That name alone was enough to punch the breath out of me. I hadn't seen his name written down. Not once. Not on the guest list. Not in any of the seating arrangements. Not on the RSVP board taped to the fridge. But there it was, the one name I should have checked for. The one name I trusted her to keep buried in the past. I walked to the bedroom, slowly, like I was stepping towards something I couldn't undo. Thera, I said, trying to keep my voice level. Why is your ex coming to our wedding? She didn't even flinch. She just turned to the mirror, calmly applying eyeliner. Because I invited him. No shame. No hesitation. Just that. I stood there like an idiot. You invited Emery? To our wedding? She capped the eyeliner and looked at me through the mirror. That calm, patronizing smile. The one she used when she thought I was being too sensitive. He's a friend, Elwood. You need to stop making everything weird. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. The guy she once called her soulmate. The one she cried about when we first dated. The one whose box of letters she swore she threw away, but I found it last spring behind the water heater. And now he's just a friend. I asked her, would you be fine if I invited Meredith? Silence. She finally turned, arms crossed, robe loose at the neck. That's different. Of course it is. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just walked out and sat in my car. I sat there with the door half open, one foot on the curb, and stared at the sky like it might offer answers. She called me dramatic. Said I was ruining the happiest time of our lives. That it was a joke when she told Marla he was the love of her life. That line again. The love of her life. As a joke. But no one jokes about that. Not hours before pledging your forever to someone else. That night, I went home, not to our apartment, but to the dusty guest room at my brother's. I canceled everything before sunrise. No dramatic speech. No text to Thera. Just cold, quiet cancellation emails and refund requests sent with shaking hands. I didn't cry until the florist called to confirm the cancellation. That's when it hit me. I cried over roses. And just like that, I wasn't getting married. I stayed off my phone for 16 hours. No messages. No calls. Just silence, like a coward hiding from his own life. And when I finally turned it back on, it nearly exploded in my hands. 32 missed calls. Voicemails. Long text chains, half apologies and half accusations. My favorite? You're blowing this up for no reason. He was just a name on a list. A name on a list. Like Emery was a guest from her book club. Not someone who used to hold her hand while she talked about building a life. A life I thought I was part of now. But I didn't respond. I didn't have words for it yet. Instead, I went for a walk. That's how I ended up standing outside the venue. The one we paid for in full, non-refundable. The chairs were already set up in rows. Cream-colored linens flapped in the wind. And in the front row, 2 seats were labeled bride's parents and groom's mother. Except my mother wasn't coming. I had told her already, it was off. And Thera's parents? I'm not even sure they cared. They always looked at me like I was holding their daughter back from something shinier. I saw the coordinator through the glass doors. She didn't see me. She was on the phone, probably confirming a cake delivery for a wedding that wouldn't happen. And somehow, that broke me more than anything. That night, I finally called Thera. I expected yelling, or crying, or both. But she picked up calmly. Too calmly. Elwood, she said, you're acting like I cheated on you. I didn't say anything at first. Because in her eyes, she didn't. But that's the thing no one tells you. Cheating isn't always physical. Sometimes it's what lives in the pauses, the glances, the names that linger too long in someone's mouth. She had made space for him in a day that should have only belonged to us. That space was supposed to be sacred. Then she dropped the line that made my chest go hollow. You're really going to throw away 3 years over a joke? I wanted to scream, "You invited the man you once called your forever to our wedding." And I'm supposed to laugh. But instead, I whispered, "You already threw it away. I just finally noticed." She hung up. No goodbye, just a quiet click. By morning, the emails started rolling in. Guests were confused. Some were angry. One even accused me of being the one who cheated. I didn't explain. I just sent a short message that said, "The wedding has been canceled by mutual decision. We thank you for your support." It wasn't mutual. She still showed up at the venue. In the dress. I only know because Marla sent me a picture. Thera was standing alone under the arch, flowers in her hand, looking like a ghost who hadn't realized she'd died. She texted me that night. "We can still fix this." He meant nothing. You mean everything. Funny how people remember your worth after they've risked it all for someone else. And yet, a part of me still wanted to go back. That's when I realized. Maybe I wasn't mourning her. Maybe I was mourning the man I thought I was when I was with her. And that guy? He didn't deserve to be someone's backup plan. It started with a simple notification, a message request on social media. I hadn't used that account in months, but I logged in out of some sick curiosity. The name that popped up on the screen nearly made me drop my phone. Emery Vincent. The same man she said meant nothing. The man who was just a name on a list. And yet, there he was, sending me a message at 1:17 in the morning. A single line. I didn't know she was marrying someone else. At first, I thought it was bait. Or worse, gloating. But I stared at that sentence like it might crack open and give me some clue, some confirmation that I wasn't just insecure or crazy. I waited a full day before replying. Then I wrote, "She told me you were just friends." I didn't expect a response. But 20 minutes later, I got one. Long, honest. Terrifying. He said they had reconnected months ago. She messaged him around the time we booked the venue. Said she missed the way they used to talk. At first, it was harmless. Just friendly catching up, he claimed. Then she started calling. Late-night calls that turned into long convos about what could have been. He admitted he still had feelings for her, but thought she was just getting cold feet and needed reassurance. He didn't know she was engaged. I didn't believe that part. Not at first. But then he sent screenshots. And there it was. Her name. Her profile picture. Her exact words. "I wish we hadn't ended like that. Sometimes I think about what life would have been like if I had picked you instead." Picked. Not loved. Not married. Picked, like a contestant on a game show. I felt like I was reading someone else's nightmare. I asked him point blank if they had ever met up. His answer? Once. I thought we were just getting coffee. But she showed up in a dress and said she wanted to know if the spark was still there. I had to stop reading. My hands were shaking. All those nights, she came home, tired from planning, or said she needed space to think. All the emotional distance I chalked up to stress. It was her slipping away and me being too blind, or maybe too hopeful, to see it. But then Emery said something that made me pause. She told me she was confused, but I swear she said she chose you. She even invited me to your wedding as proof that it was over. I thought it was weird, but I figured maybe that was her closure. Closure. She brought him to our wedding for closure? I don't know what's worse, the fact that she played both of us, or the fact that part of me still wanted to believe maybe she really did love me. Just not enough. When I didn't reply, he sent one more message. "You deserve to know the truth. I don't think she ever let either of us go." He was right. But the real kicker? This wasn't about Emery anymore. Not really. It was about me, and why I stayed so quiet for so long. Why I let her shape the narrative while I bit my tongue and nodded like everything was okay. I didn't reply after that. I didn't thank him. I didn't curse him out either. I just closed the app and sat in the dark for a long, long time. The truth didn't make anything easier. But it made one thing clear. I hadn't overreacted. I hadn't been too sensitive. I had trusted someone who didn't know the meaning of the word. And now she was calling again. Because she still didn't know I knew everything. It was pouring outside. One of those heavy, angry summer storms where the thunder hits before the lightning even fades. I hadn't answered her calls or texts for days. My phone was basically a museum of apologies by now. And I was starting to convince myself I'd never see her again. That maybe she'd vanish into her old life and pretend I never existed. But around 9 p.m., there was a knock. A soft one. Too polite for the situation, like she didn't want to startle the silence she'd left me in. I stood frozen by the kitchen sink. For a moment, I thought about pretending I wasn't home. But she knocked again. Then a third time. And then I heard it. Her voice through the door. Elwood, please. Just let me explain. I'm not here to fight. I opened the door. She looked like someone who'd run out of fight hours ago. Her makeup was gone, hair damp, mascara slightly smudged under her eyes like shadows she couldn't wipe away. She wasn't wearing anything dramatic, just an old hoodie of mine and jeans, but it was the envelope in her hand that got my attention. She held it out. Read this when you're ready. I didn't know how else to say it. I didn't take it at first. I just looked at her. I wanted to yell. I wanted to cry. I wanted her to vanish and apologize at the same time. But mostly, I wanted to know why. Why she thought I'd be okay with her playing emotional ping-pong between me and the man she used to dream about. You've already said enough, I muttered. She shook her head. You think I brought Emery to hurt you. But I was trying to prove something. To myself, not to you. That line sat in the air like smoke. She continued, voice cracking a little. I told him to come because I thought I needed closure. I thought if I saw him standing there while I married you, I'd finally feel free from all the what-ifs. But when you canceled the wedding, I realized I never deserved you in the first place. I didn't say anything, because I wasn't ready to let my guard down, not even a little. She looked down, then slowly placed the letter on the step in front of her. There's more in there than I can say right now. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know I wasn't sleeping with him. Not once. I crossed emotional lines, and that's on me. But I didn't cheat. I should have slammed the door. I should have told her that emotional betrayal can hurt just as deeply, sometimes even more. But I didn't. I just stared until she finally turned and walked back into the rain like a scene from a movie I never wanted to be in. For an hour, I didn't touch the letter. I poured myself a drink I didn't need and sat on the edge of the couch, trying not to open it. But eventually, curiosity got the better of me. Inside were 5 handwritten pages, front and back. She wrote about fear, about never feeling enough in past relationships and how Emery had haunted her memory because of how things ended, not because she still loved him. She admitted to reaching out to him selfishly, out of anxiety, out of some twisted need to be wanted one more time. She swore up and down that everything stopped the second I found out. But the part that stuck with me the most was the final paragraph. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was honest. You were my safe place, Elwood. But I got so used to having you there that I forgot you could walk away. I hurt you because I thought I had time to fix it. I didn't. And I know that now. It wasn't enough to fix what was broken, but it was enough to shake me. Because somewhere in all of that wreckage, I still missed her, and I hated myself for it. Let me tell you something about Myron. He's the guy who shows up when your tire blows out or your heater dies in January. Dependable, quiet, protective. When I told him the wedding was off, he didn't ask for details. He just helped me box up Thera's stuff and made me breakfast the next morning like it was just another Sunday. I appreciated the silence then. But now it felt heavy. A week after Thera dropped off that letter, I met Myron for drinks. We hadn't seen each other much since the cancellation, and I needed something normal. Wings, beer, a conversation that didn't start with what went wrong. But about halfway through our second round, he looked up from his glass and said something that made my stomach twist. Elwood, there's something I should have told you earlier. He said it like it hurt to speak, like he'd rehearsed it in his head too many times. You remember that night we all went to Marla's birthday thing a few months back? You left early because you had that early flight the next day. I nodded slowly. Yeah, what about it? His eyes dropped to the table. I stayed. So did Thera. My chest tightened. I could already feel the ground shifting beneath me, but I didn't stop him. She got drunk. Not blackout, but sloppy. She was dancing, laughing, and at one point, I saw her outside on the patio. With Emery. I froze. He was there? At that party? He nodded. I didn't know it was him at first. But when I saw her with him again at the engagement party, I recognized his face. It was him, Elwood. And they weren't just talking. They were close. Real close. I sat there, my hands gripping the edge of the table like I was afraid I'd fall off. Why didn't you tell me? He looked gutted. Because I didn't want to destroy something you were building. I figured maybe I misread it. I didn't want to be the reason your wedding didn't happen. My hands were shaking. I didn't even realize it until I knocked over my glass. Beer spilled across the table, soaking the napkins, the coaster, everything. So that was it. While I was home packing for a business trip, my fiancée was wrapped in someone else's past, holding onto it like a lifeline while I slept next to an empty pillow and called it love. And the worst part? My own brother had witnessed it, had sat on the truth, thinking he was doing me a favor. But all he'd really done was let the knife dig deeper, slower. I didn't yell. I didn't storm out. I just sat there, nodding, numb. Myron offered to pay the tab, but I waved him off and walked out into the cold night air without saying a word. That night, I didn't sleep. I read Thera's letter again. Every word now felt like it was written by someone playing a role, not someone telling the truth. We only met for coffee, she wrote. We were just friends reconnecting. Lies. Beautiful, eloquent lies stitched together in cursive loops and tear stains. I finally understood what hurt the most. It wasn't just what she did. It was that she looked me in the eye and offered me the half-truth as if it were a lifeline. And I nearly took it. 3 days after that conversation with Myron, I stood outside Thera's apartment. I didn't tell anyone I was going. I hadn't answered her texts in over a week. My plan wasn't clear. I wasn't sure if I was going to scream, cry, demand the rest of the truth, or just stand there and fall apart. All I knew was that I needed to look her in the eyes without a letter or a phone screen between us. I needed to see if there was anything real left in this mess she called love. I stood there with my fist raised, hovering just inches from her door, when it suddenly swung open on its own. But it wasn't Thera. It was Emery, standing in the doorway, shirtless, slightly disheveled, eyes wide in the kind of panic you only get when you've been caught somewhere you know you shouldn't be. We both froze. For a full 5 seconds, neither of us said a word. I could hear my own heartbeat pulsing in my ears, like a slow drumbeat counting down to something violent. Then I said it. Are you serious? He looked behind him like he was hoping she'd appear and explain everything. Like maybe her voice would somehow soften the wreckage this moment had just created. But no one came. I thought you weren't talking to her anymore, I added, the words barely coming out through clenched teeth. He finally spoke, low and unsure. She called me. A few nights ago. Said she needed to talk. Said she felt alone. I shook my head. So you comforted her by spending the night? I didn't mean for this to happen. Then why are you here, Emery? Why did you answer the door in her apartment like you live here now? He stepped back. Look, man, I told her it wasn't right. But she said you were never going to forgive her. She said it was over. It was over. That much was true. But this was something else. Right then, behind him, I saw movement. Thera stepped into view from the hallway, wrapped in one of those long cardigans she used to wear on lazy mornings in our apartment. Her face was pale, lips pressed tightly like she had rehearsed something to say and just lost the lines. Elwood. I held up a hand. Don't. She looked down. Her hands were shaking. I didn't plan for this. I swear. I felt like everything was already broken. You said in your letter that it was just coffee, that it never crossed a line. I meant it then. I was honest when I wrote that. I let out a bitter laugh. And now? Is this your new version of the truth? Or do you plan to write me another letter explaining how this was also about closure? She started crying, and I hated that part of me still flinched when I saw her tears. But I didn't move. I didn't offer comfort. I just stared at the woman I almost married and the man she once said meant nothing, and realized they'd both been lying in stereo. I loved you, I whispered, and you made me feel like that love was small. Like I was the safe option. Like I was the boring one you could always fall back on when the world didn't sparkle. She shook her head rapidly, mascara already running. That's not true. But it is, I said quietly. Because if I were your only, Emery wouldn't be yours still. I turned and walked down the hallway before either of them could say another word. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I didn't ask for explanations. Because I finally understood, this wasn't about mistakes. It was about patterns. And I'd been just another checkpoint in a story she never really wanted to end. It was a Monday. Gray sky, nothing remarkable. I was sorting through my mail like any other day. Bills, a takeout menu, some real estate flyer. And then I saw it. My name handwritten in cursive. No return address. It felt familiar. Expensive. I thought maybe it was a thank you card or some weird delayed condolence from a guest who never heard we canceled the wedding. But when I opened it, my stomach dropped. Inside was a wedding invitation. Not from a stranger. Not a coincidence. It was from Thera and Emery. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. Some sick joke. But there it was, in embossed lettering and thick cardstock. You are cordially invited to celebrate the union of Thera Blythe and Emery Vincent. Same venue. Same florist. Same caterer. Different groom. I had to sit down. My head was spinning. I stared at that invitation like it might rewrite itself if I blinked hard enough. This was the same venue I chose. The one I paid for before canceling everything. The menu was the one she and I picked out together. Even the font on the RSVP cards matched ours. It was as if she took the wedding I built for her, every detail, every inch of it, and just swapped me out like I was an outdated placeholder. And here's the worst part. I wasn't supposed to get that invitation. Tucked inside was a small, sticky note in different handwriting. Sorry, Elwood. This wasn't meant for you. I grabbed the wrong stack. Please don't come. No signature. But I didn't need one. It was from Marla, her best friend. The one who'd warned me once, gently, with careful words and a look in her eyes that I now recognized as pity. She'd mailed the wrong envelope. I was never supposed to see this. But now I had. And it was worse than anything I imagined. Not because she moved on, but because she did it so quickly, so publicly, and so shamelessly that I began to wonder if I ever really mattered at all. Was I just a dry run? The man who paid the deposits and laid the foundation so someone else could live in the house I built? I stared at the RSVP card for a long time. There was a box next to will attend and another next to will not attend. I considered sending it back with a third box. Already attended, just didn't know I wasn't the groom. But I didn't. I burned the invitation. Not out of rage, but as a ritual. A small funeral for the version of me who still believed she ever loved me the way I loved her. I watched the paper curl into ash in my kitchen sink, gold lettering melting into nothing, and I felt something in my chest loosen. That night, for the first time in months, I slept 8 straight hours. The next morning, I woke up to a text from an unknown number. One sentence. I didn't know she sent you that. I'm sorry. It was Emery. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. He made his choice. So did she. And now, finally, so did I. The day of their wedding came faster than I expected. I had it burned into my memory. The date we once chose together. The same one she kept for her new life. I won't lie, when I woke up that morning, there was a moment where I just stared at the ceiling, wondering if I'd made a mistake walking away. Not because I wanted her back, but because I still hadn't figured out who I was without her. But something shifted when I checked my email. A reply I never expected had landed in my inbox overnight. A museum I'd applied to months ago, back when I was still planning to be a husband, had finally gotten back to me. They were offering me a position. In Oregon. Across the country. A full relocation, new city, fresh start. For once, the timing felt poetic. That afternoon, while Thera walked down an aisle I paid for, wearing a dress I once zipped up during fittings, I was booking a one-way flight. And instead of drowning in what could have been, I chose what would be. The following week, I moved. Just packed everything and drove west. No goodbye party. No dramatic farewell. Just me, the open road, and a playlist called New Chapter that I shamelessly made myself. And you know what? It felt good. Like really good. It didn't fix everything. The heartbreak still echoed sometimes. At night, when the apartment got too quiet, or when I caught a glimpse of couples holding hands at the park. But I was breathing again. Living again. Becoming someone who wasn't defined by someone else's indecision. I started hiking. Reading again. Hosting trivia nights with my new coworkers. I even adopted a dog. Named him Pickle. Because why not? And maybe the biggest moment came 2 months later, at a small, local art event. I was browsing a photography exhibit when someone tapped me on the shoulder. Her name was June, and she asked if I wanted to share her table because all the seats were taken. We talked for 4 hours. No rushing. No expectations. Just 2 strangers who had no idea where anything was going. And that was the best part. I don't know if it's a love story. Not yet. But it's my story. And for the first time in a long time, it feels like I'm writing it on my own terms. So no, I didn't crash Thera's wedding. I didn't send a bitter email or stand up in the back row asking if anyone objected. I didn't need to. My revenge was peace. My closure was silence. And my future? It's finally mine again.